Good evening. I'm Claremont Featherstone inviting you to Security Focus. This evening, I would like to touch on a few issues, few things that I've seen in the newspaper and in the society over the last week or more. Starting, of course, with the incident at our prison, the Lusignan prison. And I recall vividly having been involved in prison officer training, remedial prison officer training, some time ago, 12, 14 years, when a number of prisoners escaped from the New Amsterdam prison. And as far as I see it, I doubt whether, even with all of the corrective measures, I doubt whether that situation has totally remedied itself. So let me touch briefly on what we have. The prison system has a number of prisons, open prisons, remand prison, which also functions as a jail, a short-time facility, a remand prison, the Camp Street prison, which serves to feed the court system and the like. And once the person would have been processed, then the individual would be sent to, say, whether it's the Sibley Hall, whether it's the Mazaruni, Timeri, Lusignan, New Amsterdam, and the like. But there seemed to be a problem in the prison system with physical security and with a proper training program or outline to train prison officers. I have found during my years interacting with the system, I have found that there are times when I would be delivering a level 2 training program, for example, and prison officers will say, could we not have a program that is a little more simple, something just below this? And I would say to them, you cannot afford to be a chapter head of the prisoners, because the prisoners have 24 hours in every day to make you a study and to determine how they are going to deal with you in terms of making an escape possible. So we have had escape from most of our prisons, and it has been occurring over and over, and we have to do something about that. When a person enters the prison system, the person is assessed in terms of custody level, and the person is sent to a prison that is best suitable for keeping him, the individual, safe, keeping other inmates safe, and trying to rehabilitate the person, because rehabilitation should always be part and parcel of incarceration. Because if we do not have some sort of plan to rehabilitate our inmates, then recidivism, going back to prison within a year or within short form, is always a possibility. So there must be some sort of rehabilitation plan. Try to teach the prisoner a skill, a trade, and the like, to counsel the prisoner to break the cycle of incarceration. And within financial context, our prison service tries to do that, perhaps not sufficiently. But my take on this situation is that in Guyana, not very much has been achieved. And I want to be politically correct here. I have heard of massive budgets for security and security sector reform and the like. But when I interact with the security substructures of the Guyana government, often I am not very impressed after being there for 15 minutes. Because when I go, this is what I find. I find analog CCTVs. I find cameras that are not meant to be where they are. They are not the best cameras for the job. I find CCTV monitors that have never been trained, yet they are being deployed in sensitive areas. I find a disconnect between security and the CCTV monitoring department. I find a disconnect between security and information technology and the like. And so those allow for immediate incursions. Those allow for the system to be attacked from left or right field. Because if the CCTV monitor, for example, does not understand his or her role and what they're doing and how the camera system works and how weather pattern and the like interferes with their operation, then they could very well be here and I can redirect the feed to wherever I want it. So you have a situation where you suffer an attack and what you think you are seeing on the camera, on the monitor, a number of other persons are seeing it elsewhere. And that could be very difficult. That could place the prison system or any part of the governmental subsystem in a very, very difficult position. There is yet another problem that I find very often. The officers are not trained, or the officers are not properly trained. And there is yet another area that we should not omit, and that has to do with technical surveillance countermeasures. That has to do with blocking signals or preventing physical attacks on the phone line, the fax line, and particularly now that we are using Wi-Fi, telephone lines, even cell phones and the like. Those measures that we use to transmit information, classified information from one place to another. So those are all areas that the system could suffer an attack, an incursion, which ultimately will compromise the security of the prison. I think the prison service should try to elevate the technical knowledge of prison officers with respect to physical security in particular, and try to get them to the highest possible level. I've been told, for example, by persons in the system, that even though there are about 2 or 3 prison officers who are qualified in relation to physical security methodologies and the like, they have said that many senior prison officers hardly ever take any advice from them in relation to physical security measures, whether it has to do with the locking system, key control management, and the like. And I believe here is where we are getting our problems. Perhaps there was a CCTV system at Luziknan, but I find it hard to cognizance how it is that you have persons in a tower and you have a CCTV system, and yet that CCTV system has not been able to pick up these persons that are attempting to leave the installation and the like. That tells me that that CCTV system is being used in a reactive mode. Because if that CCTV system is being used in a proactive mode, then there should have been management software which would have picked up any untoward movement in the immediate vicinity and alert the CCTV monitor that something was about to happen. So I believe there needs to be some fact-finding mission, some sort of investigation, and a security audit, not only of the Lusignan prison, but of all our prisons for that matter. Do a security audit on all of our prisons to determine where the vulnerabilities lie and what can be done to improve the security at all of our prisons in a holistic way. When we come back, I will deal with yet another security-related matter of import. Stay tuned. Security Focus is brought to you by Regium International, Northwest Investment Inc., IntelliGuard Specialist Security Services, and the Institute of Security and Public Safety. I have been noticing a marked increase in Cuban visitors to our country, which is a good sign. And I have noted with particular interest a marked increase in the amount of Black Cubans visiting Guyana at this particular point in time. But have you ever wondered why, of most of the Cubans visiting Guyana, there is a very small amount of blacks numbered among them? There are a few reasons for that, and a few good reasons too. The black population of Cuba is about 10–12% of the country, something in that vicinity. And many of the black folks in Cuba do not have the same opportunities as the regular ones, the colored ones that we are used to, the ones that we regularly see. One of the problems facing them has to do with the two-currency system in Cuba. There are two currencies in Cuba, the peso and the convertible peso. And many of the black Cubans are not privileged to work in the industries that pay the convertible peso, which is about 25–27 times the worth of a regular peso. And so, for starters, many are not able to accumulate the sort of money and lack the support system, even in the US and North America, to aid them and the like. And so they are not as privileged as the others to come here. And that is one of the reasons why they're here. But that's not a point I want to make. I use that because I know that many of our countrymen are seeing lots of Latinos coming to our country and have not been paying attention as to the percentage or demographic or anything to do with that, which we need to pay some attention to at this particular moment. I have noticed that the Latinos coming to Guyana have brought with them, like any other population, their cultures. And as I know it, Latinos often have philosophical views of darker Latinos, black folks. I have seen time in, time out, Latinos coming to Guyana using specific terms that are well established in the Latino cultures as it relates to dark-skinned people, black people, or dark-skinned people. And I have heard every now and again those terms being used. And I have seen them to buy, I have noticed their buying preferences, their buying behaviors, and the way they socialize in our country. And say this, in a very short while, say 10 years from now, we are going to have in Guyana some established behaviors that the Latino population, Brazilian and all of those, would have brought to our country. And if our population is not trained to detect them and to deal with them in a specific way, we are going to have serious problems in our country. We are going to see new forms of racism, new forms of discrimination, new forms of prejudice, and the like creeping up in our country. And remember, we are not only talking here about Latinos, because the Africans will come with their collective cultural practices and behaviors, and the people from European societies and North America and further afield will come with those behaviors. So, where does that leave us? It leaves us at a point where the government of the day has to pay keen attention to the changes going on in our country and try to put systems in place to equip us to deal effectively with these new trends. I am not of the view that that has been rolled out as yet. Perhaps the government has it in mind, but until those programs are rolled out and our people are taught how to engage, including the police and the joint services, how to engage immigrants from exotic jurisdictions, how to engage and deal with the collective body of criminality produced by immigrants from these different jurisdictions, our police force, our educational system, our nurses, our medical system will come under serious pressure whenever they have to deal with these people. As of now, I am aware of a situation that occurred in a police station. And to be brief, what occurred was this. A Nigerian rented a house from a Guyanese, and the Nigerian was asked to leave the premises. The Nigerian assaulted the Guyanese in an ensuing argument, and the Guyanese did not take it seriously. Eventually, the Guyanese, I think, the Nigerian then reported the matter to the police, and the Guyanese was brought to the police station. At some time later, they went to court. The Nigerian turns up in court. The Nigerian calls his Trinidadian friends. His Trinidadian friends came from wherever they were, and shortly after, the Trinidadian friends called some Jamaicans, and the Jamaicans turned up also to give support into the courthouse. Somewhere along the line, somebody else called some friends. The friends were from St. Vincent, and the Vincentians called some friends, and 2 Colombians were among them. We had there a perfect mixture that could have ballooned into a transnational mess that our police, as far as I know, are not prepared to deal with at this juncture. And so I believe we should start thinking about equipping our police and the joint services, equipping our nurses and the like, so that when people turns up at the hospital, particularly the accident and emergency, the nurses do not understand Dutch, do not understand Spanish, do not understand Chinese, do not understand Portuguese, and then perhaps French, the Haitians, and the like. And we have to think about how we are going to deal effectively with this influx of foreign nationals, and how we are going to meet them to deliver resources in a timely manner and the like. When we come back, I will conclude with yet another observation. Please stay tuned. Security Focus is brought to you by Regium International, Northwest Investment Inc., Intelligard Specialist Security Services, and the Institute of Security and Public Safety. Welcome back. My concluding thoughts have something to do with our government. I'm well traveled, and I've heard criticisms of all sorts, and I want to bring a little experience that I've had. A few years ago, I was on a course in the United States, and we lost our way to the University of North Florida. And when I got there, it was about 5 minutes past program time. And the lecturer, who was in Israeli, the instructor, broke into laughter when I went into the room. And I assume he was laughing at me because he had suspected that I got lost, like so many of the others from time to time. And then he said to me, I'm not laughing because of the reason you probably ascribe, but I'm laughing for some other reasons. And I said, well, tell me. And he said, I'm laughing because they told me that there's a Guyanese gentleman in the class, and I give them a laugh about that. And he said, this is what happened. The current Israeli Prime Minister, perhaps he was in the opposition then, was on the computer, his computer, and this gentleman was responsible for his security. And he's on the computer, and he saw the Guyana flag, and he's doing some research in Guyana. And he said that, what about this interest in this country? And the Israeli leader said, well, their government had some things to say about our country and our government, meaning the PPP government. And, but I'm researching them now, and I don't know if they know that this gentleman is going to become the president. And he gave a number of areas, things that he believed a military general would do that the opposition would not understand, and hence become successful in the election. But he had something to say. He said, but unlike Israel, I do not know how long the Guyanese population will enjoy the leadership of a military general. And he said his reason for so saying is because Israel has a number of hostile neighbors around them, and the Israelis would welcome a military general until the ending of time. He said he hopes and wishes the new president well, and wishes that he learns the rope and so have you very quickly. But my point has to do with some of the characterization of the president. And while I agree with a lot that is being said, I am more concerned with what is not being done. I believe that the electorate, the people who put APNU there, have not been as supportive as they should. And I believe that many of the people that, from that very electorate that went into office, such as those, many of those in the municipality, have not represented those positions well. I will always remember having gone to Mr. Venture's office at the municipality and sitting out there for 4 hours. He just decided that he doesn't know me, and since he does not know me and he does not know what I'm there for, he is not going to deal with me. And far too many of the bureaucrats and persons who have been elected to higher office have adopted this sort of supercilious kind of way, where they see themselves as having an air of superiority. And I believe that is the bone of contention. I doubt whether it has to do so much with what the government is not doing or the government is not delivering at this point in time. But I think it has to do with that kind of bifurcation, that sort of division which exists, or that seeming division which exists between the bureaucrats and the population, and particularly those who would have voted for the government. And so I believe it would be a good thing for the government to reassess its support base, reassess the strategies being used to deliver the goods, to deliver the resources, and to do what is needful and try to plug that gap. And that's my personal view. It has been a pleasure being with you this evening. I am Claremont Featherstone, wishing you an enjoyable rest of the day. Thanks for viewing.